The story is really first and foremost a love story, and I say that because it started about 14 years ago when my daughter was 2 years old, and I was looking for a preschool. The Montessori school had such a great reputation here in Pawleys Island. It had been around for about 25 years. And I was looking for more than a daycare, and I just stopped in and ended up enrolling my daughter, and shortly after decided to volunteer as a room mom. And the first time I walked into a Montessori classroom, I was really struck by all of the what I came to know as the materials in the classroom. And I really wanted to know what these little people were up to in these rooms. And so I started hanging out there a little more often. And one of my first memories of Montessori was my daughter's birthday, the first birthday celebration I participated in. And I have a picture from that day that really stands out from, I think it was her third birthday, and it speaks to the Montessori method and one of the things that's so special. Everything in Montessori teaches the child about real life. In Montessori, the birthday is celebrated, the child holds a model of the earth and actually travels. She walks around the sun while her teacher has pictures of her life up until that point, and the children hear a story. And so it'll start out when Gabrielle was born. It was February 7th, 2005, and she started traveling around the sun, and then the teacher then will show pictures to the children. And so, then when she was a year and a half, what happened? And the children will call out, "She got a baby brother." And, and then she keeps traveling around the sun. And when she had traveled around the sun 3 whole times, she was 3 years old. And I was so struck by the way that this birthday was done. And it wasn't just we sing the happy birthday song and the child gets presents. It was such a concrete way of explaining what it means to be 3, that you had traveled around the sun 3 times. And I get a little emotional about it because that teacher was so dear to her, and the teacher has since passed away, but she was such an important person to my daughter and to us really falling in love with Montessori, because I was really just looking for a place for my daughter to go for 3 hours a day, and I came to fall in love with a model of education that really fit with my understanding as a clinical psychologist of child development. And that's one other thing that really struck me as I continue to spend time in Montessori, and again say, what are these kids up to here? Because the other thing I noticed is they were sitting on the floor a lot. And they would sit on these little rugs that they would roll out, and it would be their space. And one day I walked in and my daughter was working with these beads, and she said, again, she's still, under 5 years old. She may have been 4 or so at the time. She said, "Mommy, come look, I want to show you something." And she had these pink beads, like a chain of beads, and a little square and a little cube. And she said, "Look, 3 threes, that's 9, and 3 threes is a square. And then 3 times 3 times 3, that's a cube." And she was showing me, and she could hold it in her hand. And I was just blown away because it made me think about a very famous psychologist, developmental psychologist, Dr. Piaget, who understood that children learn from concrete to abstract. And she wasn't doing geometry. I knew she wasn't doing she wasn't solving, algebraic equations, but I knew that when she did do algebra, which she's doing advanced algebra now, she's 16, somewhere in her mind, she would have held a cube, and she would have known what that feels like. And I just remember thinking, wow, I wish I had learned math like this. And I was hooked. I wanted Montessori for my kids. And I wanted Montessori for other kids, and that's how this school really started.
That's the most important thing that Kristen said at the end, was that we all knew what we had, we all loved what we had, we loved it for our children, but some way we were trying to find a way that we could give it to any child, not just those that could afford to go to a private school.
Yeah. And so what was happening, it's just like this happens in life, at the same time, it just so happened I was on a committee at my church where I happened to read a document about children in Georgetown County and the percentage of children in Georgetown County who were and were not proficient in reading at grade 3. And it really struck me, and I thought, what's going on here? And President Obama at the time was encouraging innovation in public education, and was encouraging the U.S. Department of Education to support charter schools as one way to say, let's see what we can do to look at other models of publicly funded education, and let's try some other things, and when things work, we will repeat them. And the charter model allows communities to say, if you have a model of education that you believe in, we will help you get that off the ground and offer that as a choice, as a public school choice. And so, the school behind us, as so many, people who have started things in their communities know, these things start with people just standing around and saying 2 simple words, what if? And I was just standing around at a birthday party, again, at a birthday party, and pushing kids on a swing set with another board member from the preschool, Montessori, and I said, what if we found a way to make Montessori public? I'm just gonna make a phone call and see what that would take.
I still remember the first meeting that Kristen put together for families. I think at that time it was mostly the private school families that came in, and again, we all knew what we had, and we loved the Montessori concept, but I remember sitting in that meeting and thinking, this is a great idea. It's something that could truly work in the community, but not once did I know or realize at that point how much work it would take, and how long it would take to get the concept and get the traction to get things moving. And it took a big community effort. It took a big effort on the original planning committees. Again, I remember sitting in that meeting thinking this is a great idea, but now looking back 10 years later, certainly never realizing that we could have the school that we have behind us. My son was one of the fortunate, he started in the 1st grade. I think there were about 5 or 6 children that finished 1st through 8th grade with Coastal Montessori, and we couldn't be happier with the outcome, the product that we've helped produce.
Rob mentioned the school district. We, charter schools are such a great concept, and a really key component to a successful charter school is the support of your school district. And we were fortunate to have a school district, and and that's abstract. I mean, a school district is made up of people, and right from the beginning, the administration, starting with Dr. Randy Dozier and the folks that worked with him, and the school board at the time, said to us, not naively, said, this is serious, and these are taxpayer dollars, and we need to make sure you're going to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we're watching you, and we support you because we care about children. We want to offer a choice to families, and but we were partners with the district, and we were grateful to the district from day one that they trusted the families who said, we believe in this and we don't want to keep Montessori as just a private school. Public Montessori is a legacy in South Carolina. We have more public Montessori schools in South Carolina, I think, than any other state. Texas has quite a few too. We might be behind Texas, but that was one of the things that we discovered when we started reaching out and looking for our friends that we could model our school off of, is that South Carolina is quite the forerunner in public Montessori, so we weren't alone. And we're so thrilled to offer the first public school choice here in Georgetown County.
So, the community was such an important aspect of starting the school. We certainly, we had parent support from the private school, we had board support, but certainly that had to be part of our mission, and our goal was to have the community support. And we spent a tremendous amount of time reaching out to the entire population of the county. Georgetown County is very large, very split with the Waccamaw Neck and the portions of Georgetown on the other side of the river, and we spent many days, many weeks, many months going out to the community and trying to do exactly this: explain what Montessori is, explain what we were trying to do, what we were trying to bring to every child that wanted it or parent in Georgetown County. So certainly having that community support and having them on board with what we were trying to do was vastly important to all of us.
Charter schools, that I spoke to the benefit of charter school is you have the opportunity to try something innovative in that you can bring, say, Montessori or a different methodology in a publicly funded setting. One of the challenges of charter schools is, depending on the state, charter schools don't have parity in funding with public schools. So while in South Carolina, the children who attend our school do receive the same per pupil funding, there's no funding for transportation, there's no funding for facilities. So the money for the building, which is a significant amount of the expenses, has to come out of the per pupil funding. So if you think about how much the mortgage on a building is, that comes off the top before we pay teachers, before we pay for supplies. And so, and that means that we have to do more with less. And just really operate, lean and really be very thoughtful about every decision. And that's where, being a board, that, can put together a group of community people who have business background and, who are just looking at the budget very carefully month to month and saying, how can we just very carefully allocate these funds so that we balance this budget and we are not over budget, and so that we make sure that we can afford to be in this building and keep it going. And but because of that, we have to continue to operate like a nonprofit. So on the one hand, we do get support from the district, and at the same time, we have to continue to raise money. So we got open because basically all of the parents who came from the private school said, well, we're not going to be paying for private school anymore. We're going to kind of take the money we would have paid in private school tuition and invest it in this idea that we really believe in. And a lot of parents stepped up and did that, and have continued for 10 years to do that. And thankfully, parents have continued to come and to give and to fundraise. And our children are in high school, and we're both supporting a hole in the golf tournament this year. And we continue to show that we believe in the school. And but we really depend not only on the district, but also on the community to partner with the school to ensure that Georgetown County residents have a choice, when it comes to public education, to continue to keep us going.
I think exactly like Kristen said, that, when she first started speaking about Montessori, the private school, I think 30 years, 25, 30 years it had been in Pawleys Island. And that's what we foresee for Coastal Montessori, is that, we want it to last for 30, 40, 50 years. And the only way to do that is to continue to have public support. Like Kristen said, I think Charleston County is the only county in South Carolina that gets some funding for buildings. So by far the building behind us is the biggest expense of the school, and to keep that open, to keep the air on, to keep the lights on, unfortunately what we get from the state and from the county is not quite enough. So any support that we can get from private people of the community, from business owners, certainly we appreciate any little bit that anybody can give.
And I will say to that, the building is more than a building. And one of the reasons that we wanted to, again, I'll kind of wrap up where we started about the first time I stepped into a Montessori classroom. It's very much like walking into your living room. I went to public school, my husband went to public school, and I think we are beginning in public education to move away from this kind of more industrial feel. But Maria Montessori, she was a physician 100 years ago, and she was such a visionary, and she just realized that children really thrive in an environment where they feel like the work that they do is meaningful. And she had this idea that the classroom should really feel like a very inviting space, that where the furniture is designed to feel like it's made for them, and the materials they're so beautifully crafted. These materials are investments. They're very expensive and they last forever. They're self-correcting. A child can just walk over and pick up a math material and start working on it. And if the assignment that they do is wrong, it won't work. And so they just keep working on it. But the rooms in this building are so beautiful. You want to be in there. It's like when you walk into like a yoga studio or something, you just walk in and you just feel you just feel very at ease, and that's by design. Our architect Steve Goggins really did a great job learning about the Montessori philosophy and understanding how important it is that children take ownership of this space, and when they come in, they know that this is their home. And they stand at the door in the morning and greet one another, and they clean up their space afterward. This is their home, and so this is more than a brick and mortar building to us and to the children, to the teachers. The Montessori environment is truly part of how they learn, and it's how they learn to be good citizens of the world, and they'll take that with them when they leave. I know both of my children have, and when we go anywhere, and if people say to me, which they do, your children are so polite or so kind or so nice to younger people, I wish I could take credit for that, but I always give credit where it's due, and it's credit is due to the Montessori teachers that they had.
Kristen was talking about the building, when we started construction, when we were going through the process, I was here weekly. For times it seemed like daily. I was here, and I've walked the halls literally thousands of times as we were building the school. And I'll never forget Kristen's kind of aha moment with Montessori was watching Gabrielle, doing for her birthday, walking around the sun. And for me, it truly was the day that we opened the school, because when I walked those halls during construction and even when we were finished, it was just a shell of a building. But I remember that Monday morning, I dropped my son off and left, and certainly there were, Dr. Dozier was here, Dr. Cafaro, a lot of the board members from the district were here, and everybody was so excited to be here. And I said to the director at the time, can I come back a little bit later and just walk around? And I can't tell you, and it makes me emotional now, just when I walked around to each classroom and saw what was happening in those classrooms, it wasn't just the building now, it was those students and those teachers that made the building and made those classrooms. So it certainly was a very special moment, and one that I'll never forget.
I am a parent of 2 boys who have or are attending Coastal Montessori Charter School. I was also on the founding planning committee that started the school, and I'm very proud of that. My older son, Truman, started at Waccamaw High School this year after being in Montessori his entire life. So he transitioned from a Montessori education to a more conventional style of education, and he has thrived in that transition. And I attribute that to a Montessori education. As we've all experienced so much uncertainty during this pandemic, one of the things that I've noticed is Truman is extremely agile. He is able to adapt in different situations. When they started school this past fall, they went from all virtual to a few days of in-person to 4 days of in-person to 5 days of in-person. And he had absolutely no problem pivoting and thriving. So I really do attribute that to a Montessori education.
My name is Joy Birch, and I am a parent of 2 Montessori students. My eldest is a 4th year here at Coastal Montessori Charter School, and my youngest is a primary school student, soon to be kindergartner, at MSPI, Montessori School Pawleys Island. And we have kind of a unique story in that my family, we were living down in Costa Rica for a little over 9 years, and the opportunity arose for us to come back to South Carolina. I'm originally from here, and one of the reasons I was so excited about coming back to the Pawleys Island area was the fact that we had a charter Montessori school available for both of my children to attend. And I became really passionate about Montessori when we were in Costa Rica. We had the great fortune of having a Montessori school down where we lived in Nosara, Costa Rica. And just, again, being a part of it, a part of the community we had there, I wanted to continue that experience here. So we are so grateful that there is this option in Georgetown County.
My youngest daughter didn't particularly like school, and we moved her here. And the first week, I asked her pretty much every day, how's it going? What are you learning? Do you like your class? And she was okay with it. About the 5th day, she said, Mom, I don't think I'm learning anything. All we do is play games. And I thought, oh goodness, I don't know if this is good. So I called her teacher the next week and had a conversation with her teacher, and she told me, she was so proud and so excited actually to hear me say that, because she said she's learning so much. She's actually using Montessori materials, and she's having so much fun, she thinks that she's playing games. And that has continued on ever since she's been here. She loves school. She loves to come to school. She thinks that she's playing as she's learning through the materials. She can tell me, and I don't know a lot about Montessori. I didn't go to a Montessori school, so I've had to learn as we've come here. And so she's explained to me all about her favorite things like test tubes and the checkerboard. And I've gotten to come and watch her and learn about it as well. And it's so exciting to see her love for learning now that she did not have before. So my oldest daughter is very shy and was also very nervous about coming to a new school. She was coming as an upper L student. So she was a little bit older, and obviously it's harder to meet new friends and things when you change schools and you're older. She came in and immediately gravitated right to her teacher. She's had a great experience. She's been able to keep that teacher for 3 years. This teacher has completely pushed her out of her comfort zone. She would have never stood up in front of a class and talked. She would have never stood up in a large group. And she does that all the time now. And that's because this teacher has encouraged her and knew that was a challenge for her and met her where she needed to be met and has pushed her to do things that she would have never done, I don't believe, in a different school. One of the best stories is she wanted to do a talent show. That was something that was really important to her. She went to her teacher, she went to the administration and told them her idea, and they supported her. They encouraged her to plan it, to promote it, to execute it, and she got a group of her peers together and they did that. And they did it all themselves. The teachers did not tell them what to do, they did it, they just guided them. And it was a great event. Obviously this was before COVID, but it was a great event and something that she was able to really gain a lot of confidence in. And her teacher also has encouraged her, whenever she has ideas, to bring them to the front. And another idea she had was to raise money for one of the local charities in our community, which is called Helping Hands. And she, with her peers again, they figured out what they wanted to do, what the project was going to be, and they raised the money. They raised $380 for Helping Hands, and she actually went to one of their events and presented the money on behalf of her and her peers from Coastal Montessori. Again, this is a kid who would not talk in a group setting, and she went in front of a whole bunch of adults and presented this money. And those are things that I don't think you get at every school. And that's, you know, the teacher knowing exactly what she needed to do and pushing her to do those things. One of the other things that I think is really special about Montessori is the fact that the students learn a lot about responsibility. They also learn a lot about independence. So what I thought was really cool when I was learning about Montessori is that the teachers will actually put a list of things, you know, activities or assignments that they need to do throughout the day. They list that for them in the morning, and the students get to work on those in their own order. They get to decide how they want to do that, and there's no homework really for these students unless they don't complete the work for the day. And so I think it really encourages the students to, you know, time management and to think independently and be responsible for their work. No kid wants homework, so I think it's a great incentive for them to actually get their work done throughout the day and take skills that they're really going to use for the rest of their life.
Hi, my name is Autumn, and this is Coastal Montessori Charter School. This is our lunchroom over here. This will be our grand hall. So as you can see, we have our upper L work here. These are all our students' names in the upper L. So these are some of the upper L classrooms. So we have our works hanging up on the hall. And so we have this thing in our school called March Madness, where we read books and we decide which one will be our champion for the March Madness. These are our lower L classrooms. And as we walk down here, we have our upper L classroom and our library down there. Now we are going to be walking into my classroom.
am a Montessori teacher and have been with the school since its beginning. This is the checkerboard, which is a way that we teach multiplication in using large numbers. And what this does is take a multiplication equation and really break it down in a tactile way where the kids are paying attention to place value and quantities so that when they're multiplying by tens and hundreds, they understand the difference in the place values. So this student here is multiplication equation is 3,245 with a multiplier of, which he didn't write down yet. And he's going to go ahead and build his multiplier. We try to use accurate language so that as the student progresses through the grades, he's going to need to know all of the correct language for it. So we really focus on that. And these beads that the students are using are something that are carried over through primary classes when the kids are 3 years old. And what's awesome is that in every school around the world, you will find a checkerboard. This is a big foundational piece of work that the kids use. Every school around the world will have a checkerboard. Every Montessori school. Yeah, you got it?
Yeah, I thought it was a big school. My last grade.
No. Every Montessori school will have these materials, and they're based on the bead bars. So as you look around the classroom, you'll see that we have boxes of beads, chains of beads, a color coding system, which is unique to Montessori, but it's universal. And it makes it more meaningful for the students to understand place, value, and number. All right. And as the students progress through their understanding of multiplication, they will start to not need the repetitive addition, and they'll start to have their facts memorized. So the checkerboard is something that the students begin in 2nd grade, and they carry this on through 4th and 5th grade until they're absolutely not in need anymore of having this concrete material, and they're able to do it abstractly on paper pencil. Last year, his equations were much smaller. He didn't have as much exchanging. So yeah, they were definitely a lot easier last year. So, and the numbers, right. Well, you showed me you were ready. So what's great too is that we follow where the students are. So as they're progressing through and I see that they're able to make the exchanges in their heads, move along more quickly, I just challenge them to the next step, until eventually they become abstract and work solely on paper pencil.
Hola, soy señora Lourdes. Bienvenidos a la clase de español. Aquí en Montessori empezamos a aprender español en el primer grado, muy diferente a los otros colegios. So hello. I'm Mrs. Lourdes, and I'm the Spanish teacher here at Montessori, and we are a unique school, as you may know. And we offer Spanish to our students at a very young age. We start in 1st grade, and they go all the way through 8th grade, and we develop a very sound foundation of a 2nd language for them in a very creative environment, all hands-on, collaborative. We teach lots of different subject matters within the Spanish language, and we do that in a fun and engaging environment. We try to make it so that each student picks up something and feels the confidence of knowing something that perhaps other students don't outside of their community here. So it's a very much of a building block for them year after year. And we have fun. We have a good time. Hope you can learn some more about Coastal Montessori and the unique opportunity that it offers to our community.
Coastal Montessori has helped me with real-world situations like public speaking and having my own opinions. Montessori is a very interactive place. Some things that we did last year was volunteer at a retirement home and a food bank. I love how in English we aren't reading books like Shakespeare, but more modern books. We just finished reading a book called Dear Martin about racial inequality and social justice. In science, we have an aeroponic wall, which is a vertical garden that has hanging plants and gets sprayed with water. In Montessori, we do a lot of working outside. Especially with COVID, it's nice to get fresh air. My Montessori experience has helped me know what I want to do with my future.
Coastal Montessori has helped me with many life skills, such as working together with my peers and knowing that it's okay to ask questions when needed. Coastal Montessori is much different from a traditional school. One of the things I love most about Montessori is working together with my classmates. My ideas are encouraged in all my classes and that they should be heard.
I'm Blue and I'm 9 years old and I'm in Miss Antoinette's class. We are gardening right now some pea plants and we are gardening some papa plants and pineapple mint.
I did not know a lot about charter schools and how they operate, and it's really been an education. And one of the things that I've learned about charter schools is it provides such a great opportunity for us to provide a free education to all students in our entire community, our entire county, really. But there's things with charter school governance that are a little bit different. So yes, we're part of the Georgetown County School District. We receive so many benefits and so much support from the district, but there's things that because of charter school law, we don't always receive from the district as well. So it's super important for us to also fundraise to make up some of those differences. So it's really important on Palmetto Giving Day for us to actively participate in this Giving Day and fundraise so that we can continue to provide the amazing experiences that are available here at Coastal Montessori Charter School.
When the planning committee took over as the first board of directors, to me there was three main goals of the board, and that number one was to advance the mission of the school. Number two was to implement and make sure that the charter was followed. And then the third thing was to make sure that the school was financially stable. And that, to me, was one of the most important things. We knew at some point that we had to have a school of our own. We were renting space from the district in the Waccamaw Middle School. And so that financial component was extremely important for the longevity of the school. And the only way that that was possible was by, like Kristen said, by having community members, by having business associates that helped contribute, if it was funds or products or anything, to the school. Unfortunately for the country, charter school law is different for every state. In South Carolina, we're fortunate in some ways, but there's a large disparity in funding for charter schools compared to public schools. So although we receive funding from the district and from the state, it definitely needs to be supplemented. And that's what we're asking from all of you today, is to help us continue what we started and help us continue offering public Montessori to every child in Georgetown County.